I'm Rachel Horgan. Join me each episode as I sit down with a guest co-host covering the latest business stories in the Seattle area. We'll read the news so you don't have to. This is The Weekly. Hi, everybody. I am here at STG at Carey Hall. So a reminder, the founder of Cornish College of the Arts lived here at Carey Hall and held classes. And that's kind of the history of it. So it's been with Cornish for a long time. And about a year ago, STG took it over. So it's a really incredible space. I did a tour of it a couple weeks ago. It's an arts, education, and community center. So they do art classes, performances, people for all ages, whether you're a hobbyist or a professional. They have rental spaces for music. I know we talked about that in the music industry episode about how hard it can be to find rehearsal space. And it's very, very affordable and low cost. I was so impressed when I did this tour. And when we did do the tour, I saw a podcast studio. So they've kind of opened this up, and we, I think, are the first ones to record in here. And I told them, why don't we test it out? Because I think there's things that you realize you need or want to change. For example, we just realized they probably need a coat rack. It's just like things like that you don't really know until you start doing it. So bear with us. We're going to try it out and see how it goes. I love the space so far, and I'm excited to be here. So thank you to STG at Carey Hall. My other update is that I took Thanksgiving off. Did you miss me last week? I don't know. I thought I'd just give myself a week off, and that's okay. I'm going to introduce my guest now, which is Jen Barnes, founder and owner of Rough and Tumble. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great. Yeah, I was just telling you, I'm back in the dating game.
Yeah.
I went on my first date in probably about 2 years. And I was rusty. I brought up politics in the first 10 seconds. And then I was
not a bad way to start, really.
I mean, I guess these days.
If you're not aligned, go for it.
It's true. And I went home and I was like, what was I saying that whole time? But that's all I'll share on air. I'll tell you more.
Was there a second date?
We're going to we've hung out 4 times. I'd say we have 2.5 dates. Because it's because we went to the women's hocky game and I saw her. That's not a date.
No. But,
so,
I mean, I don't think you messed it up too bad then.
Not yet. Not yet. So a little bit about Jen. Jen opened one of the first in the world sports bars that focused on men and women's sports. She's partnered with more than a dozen sports teams and leagues. She's part owner of the Salmon Bay FC women's soccer team here. And now she's opening a second location for Rough and Tumble. Prior to this whole journey, I think it was, 3 years ago you opened the first one?
Yeah,
So
this weekend.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, so prior to all that, she worked in the corporate startup and legal industry. So it was kind of a switch from corporate world here. And you're not new to the podcast. I looked it up. You were here April 2024.
That's wild.
Isn't that crazy?
That feels like both yesterday and about 10 years ago.
I know. Well, high level, what's changed since April 2024 to now coming back on the pod?
Yeah, I mean, I think in April 2024, I think Rough and Tumble in Ballard, our first location, had been open just a little bit less than a year and a half, and was just kind of coming out of the let's find our feet and ground ourselves phase, which I think really takes about 18 months. And I remember at that point, I was already thinking about how quickly could I execute on a second location.
Really?
Yeah, and I was starting to kind of think about neighborhoods and that kind of thing back then, and so it's really neat to have this full circle moment to be here with you.
Mm-hmm.
And we're, getting ready to open our next location. It's really exciting.
We're going to talk all about that in this episode. And anytime you have big life changes, just come on the pod. And
I'll just come on every year or so.
But I meant to ask you, how was the TED Talk?
Oh my God.
TEDx, right?
It was great.
Yeah.
Yes. It was one of the most challenging things I've ever done.
Okay.
I think a lot of people don't know this, but there's no prompters. There's nothing. So you have a speech that you have to write, and then you have to memorize it. And it's 10 to 18 minutes in length.
That's a lot to memorize. Okay.
It is. It's a lot. It's a shocking amount of content to memorize. And I haven't had to memorize since I was a kid in a play or something. And so it was a very different skill set, but it was also really, really, really rewarding.
Mm-hmm.
And the women who, there were 8 of us that day, I think 7 or 8. And they were all just, awe-inspiring, incredible women who every single one claimed to have imposter syndrome. And we were just in awe of one another.
Yeah.
So, I sweated my way through it, and we'll see what it looks like in February or March.
I'm proud of you. Public speaking is the number one fear for everyone. So
yeah, it was great.
I still get nervous doing it too. So good job.
Thanks.
All right. So today we're going to talk about 3/4 topics. The first one is going to be all about the new location for Rough and Tumble and what does opening a restaurant look like. The next one is Picklewood open. So the new pickleball restaurant and arena. I'm going to sneak in a little factoid about the Ink Drinker, which is a reading bar in Ballard opened. There's no article tied to it, but I actually stopped by last week and chatted with the founder, so we can kind of briefly talk about that. And then lastly, Pike Brewing is closing a couple locations. So we're kind of focused on, I don't know, with you touch so many different things. So it's like there's sports, there's restaurants, there's like themes. So like we're gonna try and touch on all of that. So the first one, Rough and Tumble. There's a couple articles I'll put in the show notes because you've had a few write-ups about you recently, but let's just dive into it. I was going to ask, when did you decide that you wanted a second location? But it sounds like it was from the get-go. But how did you know now was the right time to do it?
Yeah, I mean, since day one, since, I came up with this idea and figured out how to execute on something that had truly never been done before. It's always been a goal to open multiple locations. And then, I think part of that process is really just educating people on why this is so exciting, why it's so fun, why it works, and then also just really staying true to the brand is so important. And so I think that's really what a lot of the last couple of years has been focused on. And then figuring out my goal has always been to grow on a national or international scale. And I just have wanted to navigate the women's sports industry sector is really like our focus, right? So when I talk about gender equality, creating a space for gender equality in sports viewing and fandom, which is what I talk about a lot.
Yeah.
It means playing men's and women's sports equally. Mm-hmm. And why that matters and why it's such a big deal is that right now only about 15% of all sports media is actually dedicated to women. And so 85% of men's is what's, that when you turn on Comcast or Xfinity or Hulu or whatever your platform is, you're just being fed a lot of men's sports content. And so it's much harder to access women's sports. And what that means for us is that we have to work a lot harder to make sure that watching women's sports is accessible to everyone. And so that's really our focus. So it takes an incredible amount of work to hit 50-50 when you're starting at 15%. So, that is really like what we do. And in the process of that, we create community and we build the women's sports industry sector. And so, like you said, we cross over so many things from, restaurant, I feel like is the brick and mortar vehicle for something much bigger.
Yeah, it's definitely bigger than a restaurant.
Yeah.
So when we talk about, it's Columbia City. I don't know if I said that.
Yes.
The new location is Columbia City.
Yeah.
How did you choose that location? And I guess kind of also, were you waiting till you had a certain amount of money saved up? Like walk us through kind of that process of I'm opening another restaurant.
Well, I think it's an interesting idea to open a second location in the same city, especially with something that is so specific and so finite. I think a lot of people's initial question is like, "Oh, is it going to make it? How can you sustain two in the same city?" Mm-hmm. Well, I was very selective. I spent the last couple of years seeing exactly where it should land, and I happen to know that my largest fan base comes from the Beacon Hill, Columbia City, West Seattle, Renton kind of area. So that kind of South Seattle, because of how Seattle is set up geographically with our traffic pathways. It takes them about 45 to 60 minutes to get to Ballard. Mm-hmm. And so like everybody wants to get to Ballard to have that community, to have the good food, to watch a game together. But it's a lot. And so we have a built-in base that's just like ready to put their arms around this. Yeah.
And the space was a bar before, right?
Yeah. So I took over the space that was previously the Columbia City Ale House.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was a 25, 26-year institution where I think like almost all of Seattle has been in it at some point. It's where you go after a softball game or whatever. And so, I felt a huge sense of responsibility in getting this one right for the community that I was stepping into. And I also felt a lot of responsibility to kind of carry the mantle forward from the woman who ran the business prior to me. So I bought it from another woman, took over the space, and she herself built an incredible community there. And so that's something that I feel was really important to continue.
What about, because it was an existing bar, and I think you said you did some renovations, what was important to you, whether that's like where the bathrooms are or because it's a sports bar, like how the bar is shaped? Was there any kind of renovation that you're like, we have to change this when we come in? Or was it just minor touch-ups?
So it visually looks very different.
Oh.
So it was a 25-year-old kind of, English pub style bar. So it had old carpets that were 25 years old on the floor.
Yeah.
And
Gots to go.
yeah, it was just it was time, and the seller knew that too. There were just a lot of updates, and it wasn't so within the world of restaurant running and ownership. There's a lot of requirements around plans and permitting and all of that kind of thing to get open. But when you're taking over a restaurant that's currently operating, you have this short window by which to turn over the space, and then you are sort of grandmothered in, if you will, as a currently operating entity.
I love that you use the word grandmothered in.
Thank
I've been trying to do
you.
that too. I love
Thank
that.
you.
Okay.
And so that, I have flipped this around in just over 2 months, and it's been pretty intense. So it does look very different, but actually when you look at it, it's structurally exactly the same.
Okay.
It's just very visually different. So all different look and feel, and no actual massive construction, but it has been a lot. There is also a really cool element to the space, which I can share with you here, since it's not going to go live.
It won't go to live till Sunday. Okay.
Yeah, so I will tell everybody here that the floor there is very special. It is actually the Seattle Storm's championship floor.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So the floor that is in the new Rough and Tumble in Columbia City is literally the floor, the court that they won 4 championships on. And so
Wow.
when they disassembled and tore down Keep Arena to build Climate Pledge, they took the Storm court out. That went into storage for a long period of time. And then when they built the championship training facility down in Inner Bay, they saved a lot of the court, and it's all, in that space. There's a lot of it. But there's still a lot extra. There was still a lot of extra.
Wow.
And so ultimately, they didn't know what to do with it. Ended up going down to second use salvage. And I was like, let me see if I can find some inexpensive flooring for my restaurant, right?
Oh, so this was kind of like a little happenstance.
It was totally happenstance.
Wow.
And I saw it and I was like, oh my gosh, can we do it? Because it took a lot of work to actually retrofit a court floor in big panels to this space, but it is stunning.
I'm so glad that worked out.
It's really cool. So that was really, a lot of other things started to move around that, because it's the idea that we are going to be walking on a daily basis on boards that literally every incredible basketball player up until a couple of years ago has ever played on it sort of gives me chills when I think about it.
I think it makes us better basketball players.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what it does.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, that kind of leads me though to my question. You said you had 2 months, and these projects are known for being behind schedule.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say what challenge, but now I'm like, what challenges did you encounter?
So many. Yeah.
What's something that you encountered that you didn't anticipate? And we just talked to the Olympic Athletic Club, and there was some stuff that he had to deal with that put him behind. What was something that came up that you're just like, cool? Was it permitting? I imagine.
No,
was a big
because
thing,
I think if I had done this, if this was my first restaurant, I probably would have made some errors and it would have cost me some more time. But luckily, I have a semblance of understanding now. So I think really just there's always lots of little things, and those tend to add up. There were some repairs, some damage to the building over a long period of time that it just had to be repaired. And that took longer. And even though I had done the inspection, there was stuff you can't see. And it's the stuff you can't see that you have to walk into it knowing that stuff you can't see is going to add on 30 or 40% of your time or to your schedule. So at least I knew that was likely. It's still been, less than 2.5 months to flip a restaurant that is 25 years old.
Insane.
Is a lot.
That's insane.
I haven't slept much.
That it sort of similar to when you buy a house and you go in and then you do the inspection, you realize you have to change things. But with buying a house, you own it. With restaurants, you're leasing this space from another landowner or landlord. So when things come up, for me, if my dishwasher breaks, not my problem. I'm renting. I call my landlord. For you, for a commercial space, where is that line between what's your responsibility and what's theirs? If a pipe burst or I don't know. How does that work?
So it's obviously totally dependent upon your lease. So the lease that I have in my Ballard location is different than the one that I have in my Columbia City location. General rule of thumb is kind of walls out as theirs. So, the main sewer line would be theirs, but all the plumbing in the building, even if they had installed it originally and I don't own it, is going to be up to me. Windows are usually up to me, even though they exist on the exterior. Right now, there's actually 2 windows at this building that during the past couple of weeks, somebody threw acid on. And so that's a bummer because glass is really expensive and what do you do? So we have a workaround. We're covering them up.
How expensive? Like, are we talking a couple thousand to 20,000?
Yeah,
Like,
it can be a lot. And the bigger issue is that this particular location is in a historic landmark district in Columbia City. And so anything you do to the building can take months of approvals processes. And so at some point, it would be really nice to change out that glass, but there's not enough time to do it. And
you have to triage when you're trying to do something. You're like, this, I'll deal with this later.
Yeah, there's an opaque liner that from Amazon that's going on. And it'll look like beautiful frosted glass, and nobody will know.
No one will know.
Yeah.
Except for our listeners. But so remind us, when is it actually opening? Because I know sometimes
tomorrow.
It's tomorrow. Oh my God.
It's tomorrow, Friday,
So
February, or
it'll
December
already be
5th.
open by the time this comes out. We're recording here on Thursday. Yeah.
Yes.
And also, huge shout out to you for coming in and doing a podcast the day before. And you have a VIP tonight.
Tonight is actually our soft open with all the media and VIPs. So yeah, we're just a few hours out.
Well, I super appreciate it. It's not, doesn't go
I'm
unnoticed.
so honored to be here with you.
All right. So we're going to move on to our next article. We're going to obviously keep talking about Jen and her restaurant and everything. But the next article is Picklewood opens. So Nathan Talbot and Ethan Stoll, you may remember him from Ethan Stoll Restaurants, they partnered to open Picklewood, a pickleball venue. It's 27,000 square feet, featuring 11 courts and a restaurant and some bars. It was a $6 million project. And it also faced its own share of permitting and construction delays. But they had a year. They or a little over the year. They signed October 2024. Yeah. The project is in SODO, so over by the wineries, kind of just south of those wine tasting areas. And I thought it was interesting. They're not working off a membership model or initiation fee. It's not like a gym. It's going to offer classes and tournaments and open play. And I think a big part of their model, it looks like it's going to be corporate events, which is what I'm in. And I can definitely see that being successful.
I agree.
So this article is kind of restaurant and sports.
Yeah.
So there was a formidable article about you, and it talked about the global women's sports industry is estimated at about $2.35 billion. And global media coverage dedicated to women athletes is projected to exceed 20%. I know you said it's out 15 right now, but it's projected to go a little higher.
It is by the end of this year.
Yeah, which is 4 times what it was 3 years ago when you opened.
When I opened, it was less than 5%.
That's insane.
That's the biggest change. When you ask about change, that's the biggest change.
Yeah. But I want to talk about challenges with media and streaming the games, because I have a vivid memory of there was some soccer game I wanted to see, and you were like, we might have to play it on Telemundo.
That will go down as one of the most stressful weeks of my life.
So funny to me. But I mean, obviously not funny to you. No. I guess, like, what kind of challenges do you run into with streaming? You have how many TVs? And I think you have to get individual license when you're corporate. It's not like you can just log into a bunch of different Hulu. I don't know. How does that work?
Yeah. So it's actually very specific. So it's, when you go into a sports bar, kind of an average sports bar, like let's say you go to Tom's Watch Bars, like one of those big chain ones, or Chili's or something like that, right? The way that licensing works for streaming or cable or anything like that is based upon occupancy. So the larger your occupancy, the more you're going to pay. And unfortunately, that there's like this spot that's like around 250, and my Ballard location is 250. 255 actually is our capacity there, and we fill it all the time, and it's great. But it just means very expensive licensing. I'm actually, it's one of the things I'm really excited about. Columbia City is quite a bit smaller, so we see like about 80-ish. And so that'll be a much better streaming like licensing.
So do you have to pay, like you pay HBO this fee, you pay the individual networks, Hulu, or like who are you?
So most of everything on the commercial basis is really through your cable company. So in our case, it's Xfinity out here, Comcast, right? But unfortunately, when it comes to women's sports, there's very little. It's getting better, but very few women's sports are actually programmed on regular standard cable. A lot of it ends up on their online platforms. So
like Paramount Plus or
or ESPN Plus or whatever. And so unfortunately, those platforms do not as yet, in most cases, have commercial licensing options even available. So they don't exist. They're not structured. You cannot get a commercial license to play this stuff. And that's a huge barrier of access to watching women's sports when you think about it. It's like you really have to just watch it at home. So in order to do that, I actually work directly with Paramount Plus, ESPN Plus, et cetera, to get special dispensation to actually be able to do what we do. And it's not easy. It takes a lot of extra work and legal fees and all kinds of stuff. But yeah, there was a time, it was our first summer, and that was the Women's World Cup.
That's what it was.
Yeah. And Team USA, U.S. women's national team was playing. It was a huge game. I think it was against the Netherlands. And that season, U.S. Soccer had just signed with HBO Max.
Right.
and they were carrying the men's games on cable. And they were putting women's games on Max. And I actually spent quite a bit of money on legal fees fighting them to be allowed personally to just be able to play the game, and they denied it. Yeah. And so that morning, I got up that morning and I was like, I had a whole press statement planned for I was like, up until that morning, I was like, gosh, am I just going to do it and then fight them on gender inequality and discrimination?
Get your hand slapped in,
And then that morning, we ended up, Telemundo ended up carrying. The Univision, I think, and U.S. Soccer actually got a deal done that morning because of this particular issue.
Wow.
And so we did actually play it on Telemundo.
But was it in Spanish? I can't remember.
It was in Spanish.
Oh, wow.
Which is frankly fantastic.
Great.
It's so much fun. I don't understand it clearly enough.
Yeah.
I can get through some, but it was that we were able to actually legally play the game.
Yeah.
But it was a lot.
I'm glad things are trending in the right direction.
They are changing.
Yes, and in a couple years.
Yeah.
I also, in this segment of sports and restaurants, I wanted to ask about Salmon Bay.
Yeah.
So you became a part owner. I think I had a clip of you on one of these episodes when we talked about Salmon Bay. It's the women's, what's it in USL? Is that the name of the league?
USLW. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so you're a part owner.
Yeah.
What have you learned? Like, has it proven to be successful?
Yeah.
Is it worth it?
Gosh, yeah.
What have you learned from that?
Yeah. So, I mean, as you know, we have the Seattle Reign here, and we have, which is professional NWSL league soccer. And then we have a lot of collegiate soccer and a lot of rec soccer. But we don't have, in the United States, we don't have a kind of really strongly built up kind of development program. So once you leave college as a women player, you are kind of done unless you make it into the NWSL, which is very few people make it into that. It's a very, very elite play, the best of the best play. And the NWSL is the best league in the world. So when you think about the fact that we have 12 teams, not very many people. What USLW has done, which is fantastic, is actually created this development structure. So it's part of this pyramid of growth that allows you to kind of hone your skills.
Pipeline into the NWSL.
Yep. And so it's considered pre-professional, which is, so it's kind of semi-pro, if you will.
It's a good message, but I guess, was there a business decision behind it? Was it rough and tumble will have more exposure, or I'll get return on investment in a couple years?
Yeah. We had our first season this last year. It was extremely successful. I think we gave up 1 goal all season. It was awesome. We just missed going into the championships, but that's okay. We'll be back next year.
Yeah.
And I think it's all of those things in one, right? So there's a lot of branding that goes with that. And for me, that's one element of it.
Sure.
What I really care about is the fact that we're creating opportunities for women's sports, women athletes, and truly building a fan base of soccer fans that didn't exist a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's going to have long-term benefits, not just to the women's sports fan base and the women's sports community, but also places like Rough and Tumble who live to create and build the women's sports fan base until we get to a point of 50-50 naturally. That's really needed. Our goal at Salmon Bay, our brother team, is Ballard FC.
Mm-hmm.
We're literally, there were definitely returns this year, and we're just putting it all back in because we want to build something bigger, stronger, better.
So early on too, right? Yeah. I've got one more sports question before we move on, which is FIFA's coming.
Yeah.
How do you plan to take advantage of FIFA? Anything specific that you can tell us? Was opening the location before FIFA something you had in mind? Are you going to do anything?
No, it is a really big deal. I genuinely don't think that most people in Seattle can mentally, psychologically comprehend what's about to happen next summer. We've never even had a Super Bowl here. And this is bigger than the Super Bowl, sustained over 4 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a lot coming our way. And I'm actually on one of the committees at Seattle 2026. And so we're doing a lot to really do everything we can to help plan for and support our business and local communities and neighborhoods so that it's, everybody's benefiting from this and that we leave a lasting legacy. For Seattle, it's actually an incredibly special opportunity because we get a number of U.S. men's games here. And within that, we're lucky enough to have scored dates that align with being the only Pride match in the entire U.S. Yes, in the entire FIFA World Cup. And then we also have the only Juneteenth match. So this is also, it's a huge opportunity and also a huge mantle. And I talk a lot about this, that I feel like the responsibility of celebrating Pride for the entire world and showing the world that this thing that is illegal in many countries who will be coming to the United States is something that we celebrate, honor, and uplift and respect, and certainly don't outlaw. And so I feel like that is we're doing a lot around this to celebrate for the whole world, not just Seattle. And what I hope one of the benefits is for us locally is that we continue to build out our Pride centric inclusive community across the city as well. So
yeah, and build up tourism as well. People feel
there's a lot of tourism coming. We really have had a strong focus on the small business side of it, and how do we ensure that when everybody is downtown at the games or downtown hotels, that we're not leaving the small neighborhoods like Columbia City and Ballard and West Seattle and Queen Anne and stuff like that behind. And so we're doing a lot around that, and I'm really excited to see what it's going to look like.
Me too. I'm glad you're on the committee.
Yeah.
This next article is sort of related. So I don't know. Article 3.2, the ink drinker. So have you heard of it before?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're in Ballard.
So it's a reading themed bar. And I actually had an opportunity to chat with the owner. So I'm going to play a quick clip of this interview. How did you come up with this idea?
Oh, gosh. So the seed was essentially planted when I was a kid reading the Sherlock Holmes stories. Basically, one of the stories, we meet his brother. His brother is at a place called the Diogenes Club. It's a place where you go and you read in silence and you can have a drink. And it just sounded wonderful to me. I was a fun kid.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But obviously, it's like, I was 11 at the time, and it just kind of always stayed in the back of my head. Get to Seattle, and we have the silent reading party at the Hotel Sorrento, and I love it, but at the time it was only once a month. And this is before they were really enforcing just tickets and all that stuff. You could go in and sit on the floor. I mean, and so it got super crowded, and then they started turning people away. Then a pandemic happened. I went back to school and got my business degree, and then just started working on trying to find a spot here in Ballard.
So it was a great interview with her. I also asked about how, people aren't coming in and out of her space as much because they're reading. And so the price of the cocktails are a little bit more because you're paying for the experience. And this kind of gets at the combination of restaurants and experiences.
Yeah, we deal with that all the time.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
The Picklewood one, something in here says, entertainment helps retain customers for longer and provides another reason for people to come in. So restaurant industry is so hard here in Seattle. And I think adding, whether it's a theme or, with you, obviously women's sports, with this, it's reading a book, and Picklewood is the game. I guess, what do you think about themed bars in general? Or would you call it a theme bar?
I mean, I don't consider Rough and Tumble a theme. I think a theme sounds gimmicky to me. No offense, but to me, I think there absolutely are themes. And you hear in the restaurant industry, you'll often hear about a concept, which to me doesn't fully build out what a place like Rough and Tumble is, or, because there's so much more there. You're actually there. There's a sense of community. And I think Ink Drinker is going to be that. And we host, so I know that she did all of, you used to go to these silent reading. Yeah, silent reading clubs. And we actually host one every month at Rough and Tumble. And it's just oftentimes absolutely packed. And same thing, people struggle to get in. And so I think it's just so fabulous. I think there's just such a movement around that. And it's special. So I anticipate she's going to do very, very well. But kind of flipping over to that idea around pricing and everything like that, it's a big issue, going back to what we were talking about licensing. When you think about how many apps and platforms Rough and Tumble is taking out, we probably spend upwards of $35,000 a year just on cable and streaming applications, that is not normal for an average bar that has a few screens on. And so how do you handle adding that in, plus increasing wage costs and labor costs and rental costs and everything else, food? And it does require higher fees. But, I liken it to, you wouldn't go to a show and expect to not buy a ticket when you go in.
Mm-hmm.
This is just sort of this ongoing. And yet at the same time, how do you do that in a way that's sustainable for the customer as well is kind of a constant.
I think it's making it clear to the average person going that they know that they're paying for the experience too. I felt that way when I went to Gasworks Brewing, because their beers are quite expensive. But I know that I'm going
their waterfront property.
I'm literally sitting on the water. And am I going to have 12 beers? There's no, I'll probably have one and take a picture and leave. But I think that if you make an experience, then the attendees can kind of understand. I understand this cocktail's a little more expensive because of this.
Yeah.
I would think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting. Our pricing is actually, when you look around, it's not that much. I was doing a price kind of cost analysis recently. I try to do it every month or so. I think it's, cocktails on average, just a regular cocktail, nothing particularly special are edging on 18 to 20 around Seattle now.
18 to 20 average cocktail price in Seattle.
Yes. And ours are generally around 15, which is frankly a little too low. So,
well, if you want.
I'd rather have people stay longer. That's the thing about a game.
Mm-hmm.
People don't come in and turn a table in 60 to 90 minutes. They're usually coming in for 2 to 3 hours. How do you also speak to your guests that way? And it's a conversation, right?
It's just everyone has their different strategy. There was a bar in San Diego I went to, and the bar seats were so uncomfortable, and we were like, "Why?" And the rumor was that they did that on purpose so
to move you up.
Yeah.
I've heard that too. Ours are pretty comfortable. I'd rather have you stay.
Yeah, I know. Well, you're kind of leading me right into our last article, which is about Pike Brewing to close locations. So Pike Brewing Company announced they'll be closing Pike Pub and Pike Fish Bar, which they shared a space inside Pike Place Market. And some people might remember that in 2021, they partnered with the investment company Seattle Hospitality Group, who also has a controlling stake in Fremont Brewing. I didn't know this, that the founder of Fremont Brewing, Matt, is now the CEO, or has now become the CEO of Pike Brewing. Did you know that he moved from founder to...
I didn't know that.
Okay. Well, anyway, that's what the article said. And...
and Matt and Sarah Nelson. So Sarah,
yes. But Sarah Nelson, doesn't she not have as much ownership because of that?
Because of her role in politics,
So the article talks about how it's what we've been saying, rising costs of food and labor and all the things. The example he gave is ketchup has gone up 20 to 40%.
Yes.
I don't know if you have noticed that with yours.
Yes.
And then there's another article I'll link in here, which is just about the affordability of small businesses in Seattle in general. And again, that talks about what we've all been talking about is wages, tariffs, food delivery, apps, things like that. So the gist is the feeling that the Seattle is trying to have these small companies fix the affordability problem, and it's not helping everybody. So
no, it's not. It's just categorically not right, in my opinion. I'm take the opinion out. It's not right. Small business should not be sustaining a larger issue. We in Seattle are home to some very large, wealthy, well-known companies, and it's changing and has categorically changed the landscape here. Rising housing costs are prohibitive for most people. There's an article that was just out last week or the week before that we have the most expensive delivery food in the country. These are just like daily, like we need to eat and have a roof over our head, like basic human needs, and we're outpricing everybody. So in order to fix that, we have taxed small business up the wazoo, and it's completely not sustainable. And, I tackle this constantly. This last year, I think anybody who listens to this podcast on a regular basis knows that minimum wage went up. So when I opened Rough and Tumble December 8th of 2022, which it's our 3-year anniversary this week.
Congrats.
Yeah, thanks. The minimum wage was $16.25 an hour. And in January. So then this year it went to $20.76, and in January of like literally less than a month away, it's going to go to $21.30, I think. That's a massive jump. That is not even like out of over a long period of time. So, I can't tell you how stressed I was in the beginning of this year. Like I just opened, I'm 2 years in, am I going to fail? Right? Because how do you sustain that big of it without drastically changing your fee structure and your tipping structure and your pricing and everything else? And every restaurateur in Seattle had a different approach to it. Some did service fees. Some, everybody kind of did a different approach. Ours was, I decided to follow my own route on it, and it's luckily been successful. But I think it is successful in great part because ours isn't a concept. It isn't an idea. It's literally a place that creates community, and where we're offering something that nobody else can offer. Of course you want to be there. Of course you want to be there for that moment, that community, that uplifting feeling, that safe space. And watching women's sports together is just one of the coolest things you can do.
Yeah, I know. I think I was there at like 5 in the morning for some game.
Yeah.
But the minimum wage thing, I mean, that's a long discussion. I think two things can be true. I think making $20 an hour is not a way to live in Seattle. Nope. And it's also not affordable for small businesses to pay that. And then when you add the layer of restaurants and tipping, it's it just doesn't make sense. But I guess I want to ask.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. I mean, I 2076 is not enough money to live in Seattle. At minimum wages, I mean, thank goodness it's at least that much. But it's not enough to actually live any kind of, have your own apartment or anything like that in Seattle. So I want to be very clear. I am not saying that we should have lower minimum wage. It's still not sustainable enough. However, in the restaurant industry, so for Rough and Tumble, you go to a restaurant and you usually tip. I think sort of industry average is somewhere around 15 to 20%, with 18 being pretty normal.
Okay.
We average between 24 and 30% in tips.
Damn. Constantly.
Always. We rarely dip below 24%. So in a lot of parts of the country, people will have, restaurants will have what's called like tip credit. And so where you actually meet a certain minimum wage, part of that credit comes from tips and part comes from you as an employer.
So like the city is paying, where's the credit?
No, like let's say minimum wage is $20.76 an hour. If you are in a restaurant environment, one way of doing this in other parts of the country is doing a tip credit, so that like maybe I'm responsible for $15 to $18 of that portion, but then the other amount can be met through tips. So it goes towards it. There's a million ways of doing this and I'm not saying that this is the right way to do it, but on average, when you think about, I mean, my team's probably making between $40 and $60 an hour, depending on what time of year and stuff like that. And so we're not actually actively talking about minimum wage. We're talking about something that is sustainable.
I think that's what gets missed in these conversations.
I think that's what gets missed. And, I think restaurant industry in particular, our margins are so thin. Food costs are crazy expensive. Tariffs are crazy expensive. Transportation, fuel, all that stuff, like it all ends up coming on us by the time we get the food in the door or the alcohol in the door, and then add labor to it. And then you add in very expensive real estate, and then you add in really high labor costs. It's not particularly profitable, I will say that. But, that's why we've seen just this huge spate of restaurants around Seattle not making it.
I just wish that like the policy change would also get creative on the business side of it. How can we help businesses? Because I think a lot of the policy is like things are expensive. Let's help workers, and that's all.
Which I love,
good, but let's look at 100% it holistically.
Yeah, I think there's both and I imagine that we will get there, and that we just haven't figured it all out yet.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to say about kind of the relationship between small business and the city? Is there anything that you wish the city would do, or do you have any other comments on it?
I don't know. I mean, no, not. I think that in general, most regulatory stuff is not set up to support small business. And, when you layer in being woman-owned or queer-owned or, Black-owned or anything like that, you've added a whole bunch of additional layers of barriers to access. And a little grant is not going to make a massive difference when what you're looking for is long-term sustained success.
Change,
and generational wealth and growing that. And, those kinds of things are much harder to get to in small business. And I think there's a lot that we as a society and culture could do to create a better environment for.
Yeah, I agree. The article says
small
something
business.
about like we say business, quote, business community, and we're lumping in the Amazons with the mom and pops, and we need to look at it differently.
We do. Yeah, that's it. I mean, I think that's really the most clear way of saying it. A multi-billion-dollar company is not the same as a
restaurant,
or a daycare or retail shop. And we need all of those things because you know what? It's not, you can't go down to Amazon and watch a game with your friends.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's an ecosystem.
Yeah.
All right, Jen. Well, this has been so fun.
Thank you.
I'm going to close out. You suggested a different question because I was going to say, what are you thankful for? But Thanksgiving's passed. We're already on to Christmas. And you suggested to talk about what our favorite books are. Because in honor of the Ink Drinker and stuff. Yeah. So what are you reading? What do you recommend?
Well, I will tell you, as a business owner who's constantly, juggling this corporate entity that's a huge portion of the women's sports industry sector with running a restaurant. It's a lot. And so I usually go home and just read like really light beach reads. And I will say that if anybody here just needs just a light book, Beach Read by Emily Henry is probably one of my all-time favorite light books. It's very, very, very well written.
The name is on the nose.
It is. It's on the nose. So I highly recommend. I've read it multiple times.
Okay, I love that.
How about you?
I just read Careless People, but that was like a little while ago. Is the I don't know. I stick in my like corporate world, and then there's that one is about a kind of a whistleblower tell-all from Facebook Meta, and then I bought this book about private equity, but it's a little too
a little dense.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Well, try
maybe I'll need to
Beach
read. I need a Beach read.
You really should.
I
I'll just send you a copy on Amazon.
Oh man. Okay. Well, we're gonna close out, but I want to say one more time to thank you to STG at Cary Hall. We're here in Capitol Hill testing out their new podcast studio.
It's awesome, by the way.
So I know, right?
I love it.
I love it. They've been really helpful. And our audio, Josh has got his Everyone Watches Women's Sports sweatshirt on, which we appreciate.
Go together.
So yeah, thank you again to STG at Cary Hall. And then everyone listening, make sure to go check out Rough and Tumble at Columbus City. It'll be open as the time that this episode comes out. So
I'll just say now it's open.
Now it's open.
Yeah.
Go check it out. All right. Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.
This has been The Weekly with production assistance from Nick Patry. If you liked what you heard, rate us and write a review on Apple Podcast or Spotify. We love listener feedback, so if you have any story suggestions, comments, complaints, email us at info@theweeklyseattle.com. Make sure to check back next Sunday for the latest local business news. We'll see you next time.